Okay. Well, we're going to get started. I'm really thankful for all of you to show up after school, a long day. Thank you for being present here. Thank you for being with me this afternoon. I appreciate it. My name is Cara Daza, and I am the elementary STEM coordinator for a school in Bucaramanga, Colombia. It's called Colegio Panamericano. And so today we're going to talk about how to create the best assessments with project-based learning and next generation science standards. So our big questions for today are: what is project-based learning? What is a best fit assessment through the lens of NGSS and PBL? What tools are available to help create my own PBL experience and best fit assessments? So we're going to watch a video right now about project-based learning. And what I would like for you guys to do is, while you're watching the video, I have a protocol here that I'd like you to fill out while you're watching, and I'll give you some time afterwards. Does everyone see my protocol, or it's called virtual chalk talk protocol? Yes, okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stick it in the chat so that you guys can look at the questions and write and reflect as you watch the video. So stick this in the chat. Let me know if you're able to open it and edit it. I believe that it will be, yes, great. Okay, so the idea is that people put their name on the name column, and then you choose the questions you want to answer. You do not have to answer all these questions, but there's 3 questions. So what impacted you in the video? What did you notice about the assessments? And what questions do you have? And then I will give you some time after the video. And the idea is to respond to someone else's comment that they made in the document. So we are going to start with the video.
So this morning, the concentration of lead was 1.0 parts per billion.
I teach at an urban school, and environmental racism is something that plagues the community that our kids are from. And so I was looking for a project that included this idea of environmental racism, but in sort of a larger context. The crisis in Flint would serve as the main case study that my students would focus on to explore this idea.
I want you to consider a different perspective, a different compound you may think might work.
One of the major issues with the Flint water crisis was that public officials did not include corrosive inhibitors. Corrosive inhibitors are typically used to prevent lead leaching into the water system. And so the driving question for this project became, what is the most effective corrosive inhibitor?
So there are 3 exhibits for this mystery piece. Here is how we're going to interact with the posters. We're going to use this thinking routine called see, think, and wonder. There are 2 for things you see. I see that. There are 2 for I think. My interpretation of what I see is. And then I wonder. I have a question, and this is my question.
So we kicked off the project using a mystery piece. And the purpose of the mystery piece was to captivate the students' interest in the particular topic that we'd be studying without fully giving it away. And so the mystery piece consisted of pictures, text, graphs, images of the Flint water crisis. And the purpose of this was basically to spark the curiosity of the students. I wanted them to make an emotional connection to this project.
So the big reveal, this semester, we are going to be studying water quality, okay? And we're going to be looking at Flint, Michigan. I was fortunate enough to see all of the really interesting ideas you posted. What I want you to do now is make that public to your group.
Well, I wondered why people still have to fight for water when it should be all right. And people in Flint still don't have clean water. It's been years.
I also wondered if the schools do choose to shut the fountains down, what are they going to use as a replacement?
And so during our whole class debrief, I used another protocol. I used to think, and now I think. And one of the students thought about Flint, but his thinking got challenged because of some of the images that we saw.
Our learning targets for today are: I can design an experiment to test the effectiveness of corrosive inhibitors. I can develop a testable hypothesis. I can generate a hypothesis based on my research.
So after the entry event, students needed to develop background knowledge on the topic. Marcus, others would say.
Others would say that sodium silicate is a more effective corrosive inhibitor because it serves both needs.
And so we read secondary sources, we watched videos, we listened to podcasts about what was happening in Flint, and we generated lots of questions. And then we categorized those questions into two lists: what I need to know and what I want to know. And then we subcategorize those questions into other lists. Are the questions quickly answerable? Do they lead to a scientific investigation? Are they open-ended? Are they narrow?
Based on your knowledge of corrosive inhibitors, which would be the most effective? What makes you say that?
According to Scientific American, how lead ended up in Flint drinking water. Not applying orthophosphate into the water regularly will cause O2 to react with lead atoms, oxidizing them. And once they're oxidized, the lead dissolves into the water instead of sticking to the pipes.
And one question that came up over and over again is, what's the best corrosive inhibitor? And then we did our mandatory PubMed Google search. We wanted to see if someone had asked that question. We found through our research that no one had done this study before. And then there was a need to publish this work. And so we determined that the audience for this study would be the Flint officials. The second constituency we're sending this paper to are the scientists at Virginia Tech. Our idea emerged from their paper, and we think that our knowledge will be useful to addressing this problem. And then the kids were told to design an experiment. How did you come up with this?
I just thought of the water cycle and how water evaporates.
After they designed their idea, they came into the laboratory and they set up their experiments, and it was full steam ahead. And they're just so excited to see what happens. I sort of have to hold them at bay. But I sit them down and I have them go through this routine, predict, observe, explain, where even before they see what they want to see or make their observations, they have to predict. They check out what's happened, that's their observation, and they explain what they've seen based on science.
Yesterday, my lead levels were 0.5, and I expect to go down to 0.3.
Okay, my hypothesis has not been supported by data, so I stated that polyethylene glycol would be the most effective at stopping corrosion.
And so in the lab, students were mixing a certain amount of water with corrosive inhibitor and adding a lead. And every day, they were measuring the amount of lead that was leached, and they were measuring the quantity of lead using one of the pieces of equipment that we have. And then they were documenting this in Microsoft Excel to do statistical analysis.
I'm really excited to work with you all today to sort of hear about the research that you've been doing.
What I do now, going to school as a PhD student, is a lot of stuff with statistical analysis.
Hi, my name is Ari. I'm also a senior. From the past, I also have experience with t-tests, ANOVA tests, and z-scores.
I invited experts into the room. And so these experts range from students who had taken the class with me to PhD students to people who are currently using statistics and math teachers. It was important for me to have the students see people who look like them, who are friendly, who are experts in the work, working alongside them to teach them something.
And so what's your goal for today?
Today is, just to finish pairing up all the corrosive inhibitors with each other.
So if I get a T of 1.9, I would say, oh, this might just be random noise in my data.
It's like if I have a coin and I flip it 100 times. Okay. Do you think I'm going to get exactly 50 heads exactly 50 times? No.
And so what that looked like for that particular day was, I'm going to meet with an expert about statistics. I want to learn how to use t-tests. I still don't get it. And this becomes the basis of the conversation with the adults, as opposed to what traditionally has happened: I don't know what to do, tell me. I think this structure promotes a sense of agency. I have some control over my life, and I can advocate for what I need.
We also have to control different kinds of elements in this. So in this case, it would be independent and dependent variable.
Some effects of lead in water, especially, it affects a lot of children and infants and pregnant women because they're not fully developed yet.
Because since lead can be found in different water sources, using methionine, it can help clean heavy metals.
Part of writing this paper is having their work undergo public scrutiny. And so in our class, we have that through presentations.
Can you restate your hypothesis? Because you probably said it, but I wasn't really clear exactly what your hypothesis was.
It was really nice to have experts assess them, give them really positive feedback, and also learn alongside them in designing something that was novel to both the students and the experts in the room.
You guys were extremely thorough and that you had healthy debate, and I think that's really, really good.
I was just in a grad school class on regression, and tons of grown adults can't talk about this in a coherent way, right? You guys are well on your way.
Teaching kids how to be self-directed is really important. Teaching kids how to be curious is really important. And I also think kids actually care that their project has a final destination that's not my file cabinet. It's going to help real people that they've emotionally invested with. They're adding to a body of knowledge for which no knowledge exists. Their work means something.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Welcome, everyone. If you haven't opened the protocol, I'm going to send it again in the chat. And the idea is to keep reflecting. I'd like you to answer whatever questions you'd like to. You can answer one question, two questions, or all three. And then once you're done writing, answering your questions, read through some of your colleagues' responses responses to the questions, and I would like you to respond. So we're going to take a couple minutes to do that, and then if anyone wants to share out loud, we'll share too. So I'm just going to give us about 3 more minutes, and we'll see how we are. All right, well, thank you for everyone for participating. I really enjoyed seeing your responses and also responding to each other. Does anyone want to share out loud any reflection or any thought or any question? I'm practicing wait time.
I would like to share something.
Yeah.
So maybe you can come up with more ideas. So hi everyone, my name is Erica. I'm currently working at Village School, Guatemala, and I'm working with first and second grade. So with my students right now in science, we're working with second grade about properties of materials, and we're going to do a project for final quarter test, and they're really excited because they're going to test a superhero cape. Like what is the best material to make a superhero cape. And something that I like is that they already have the knowledge, and they have like they're having all the things that they have been learning, put it into practice with this project. And the only thing that I'm struggling a little bit with, it's with vocabulary for them. Like, as you know, their primary language is Spanish. So it is kind of frustrating for them when they don't want to like share their ideas. Like they just go through like basic vocabulary that they have been learning. But something happened today that we were observing some superheroes and the capes and like what they do with them. And they were like, oh, like I think we can use a material that can be light, and maybe once you run with the cape, it's going to fly with the air. So just seeing them reflecting on what they have to do in order to get the best cape, it's just amazing. Since we're building this project, so if you can come up with more ideas of how we can make it more fun for them to keep getting engaged with the project, that would be amazing. But I just love the way that all the assessments we can do, we can get it through the standards in science, and they're just like amazing with everything.
Thank you for sharing, Erica. Yannick, is that how you say your name?
Yes, exactly. Yes, well, I'm from the Netherlands. You would say Yannick, but Yannick it is in like
Yannick. Okay.
Anyways. So hi guys. I'm a 7th grade math and STEAM teacher. Also teaching in Guatemala. So currently I am, so these kids here in 7th grade, they are like 11 years old, 11, 12. And what I've noticed so far, like I am implementing a PBL in my math class. We are working with percentages. We are working with some geometry like circles, etc., etc. So I came up like with a PBL thing of a pizza kind of thing, right? With the circle, and then like putting it into kind of a business model, like you become a business owner. And then like let's see how you can use like percentages to give discounts, etc., etc. You know, like that shortly said, that's kind of the summary of what they are working towards. But like I'm finding it, maybe it's, I don't know how like in other countries that is right now, but we are still virtual. So I noticed like PBL virtual, it's, I don't know if it's the virtual thing or maybe also the age of the kids, but like working together, I don't know, like it's really challenging. So maybe I don't know like exactly where I'm going, but I would like to have some tips, like what do you guys do to like having kids want to work together? Because what I see at this age specifically, that they like prefer to do like things by themselves, or they are shy to open up like in group context.
Yannick, thank you for sharing. Yes. Yeah, we are still all in a pandemic, and a lot of us are still virtual. So I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you for sharing about your project too. You know, the protocol that I just did with everyone is a great way to get people to see each other's thoughts, reflect together, comment. You know, there's, I think, little things you can do. It's hard, but I want to just recognize it is really hard. So hopefully today, I'm going to give you guys some tools and some resources, and that will inspire you, give you some ideas that you can use in your projects and with your assessments. So I'm going to continue with the presentation, and here we go. There are some more people coming in here. So, sorry, thanks for bearing with me, you guys. Okay, so we already went through this. Our big questions for today. We watched the video. We did the Chalk Talk protocol. And thank you so much for participating. I really appreciate that. Okay, so I saw a lot of you put together some thoughts about PBL, and I just wanted to highlight for you, you know, what is PBL? A lot of you already pointed these things out in the videos. You know, project-based learning is really intentional about developing 21st century skills, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration. They're always born with the question of like, why does this matter to my students, and what real world connection will it have? And there's an authentic audience for student work. So I think it was Erika who talked about her CAPE. You know, a question I would have for you, and we can talk about this later, Erika, you can write me. I would love to brainstorm. I would love to know who is that audience that they are building capes for? Is it some seniors who are going to be, you know, superheroes? Who are they building this for? And then, so the question today is about what about assessments and project-based learning, and specifically NGSS. So I would like to present to you a different framework to look at all the standards and all of our intended learnings. Every teacher around the world, whether they're doing project-based learning, whatever curriculum they're looking at and working with, they all have intended learnings or learning goals for their students. And I would like to propose that we look at them in 4 different categories. That we look at this big understanding, this knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So dispositions might be respect. Dispositions might be growth mindset. Skills, it could be collaboration. It could be a 21st century skill, or it could be skills like measuring. It could be a science skill, you know, planning and investigation. So I'm going to walk you through an example that we use at my school at Colegio Panamericano in 3rd grade. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project. This project was designed all around engineering. And so we think it's important that students grow through the engineering process and experience that joy of solving a real world problem. So in this project, students use design thinking and empathy to identify a real world problem of a family member and solve it by using magnets and a 3D printer. Students explore different phenomena of forces and motion by making observations, investigations, and asking questions. So the big question is, how can 3rd graders as engineers solve problems using magnets? So they were using science, engineering, PE, math. The final product was a 3D printed object with a magnet that solves a family member's problem. And the authentic audience was their family members. So after they made the product, they handed it in to their family member to be useful at their home or in their life. So when my teachers and I were planning this project, we of course looked at the evidence statements of NGSS. You know, we looked at SCPs, the DCIs, and the CCCs. And what I'm proposing is that in project-based learning, we look at these and what students need to be able to do, and we frame them in a different way. And I'd like to propose this for you, that we frame it in the understandings, the skills, the knowledge, and the dispositions. So I'm not going to read everything in these lists, but basically this is kind of how we break it down in a project. And we want to really know before we start a project and before we make our assessments, what are the big understandings that we want our kids to come away with? What are these skills that we want them to learn, whether it be those 21st century skills or math skills or science skills? What's the knowledge and what's those dispositions? So before you teach anything, and you guys all know, we want to do this backwards design. We want to plan our assessments. We want to have the end in mind, so we know where our kids are going, but we need to be carefully constructing these assessments. And I would like to propose to you that there are many different ways that we can make an assessment. And I want to, at the end of this presentation, you know, figure out what is actually the best way to assess students to really get these big understandings and to really have them these deep learnings going on. So this is a matrix, and it has the 4 categories on the left-hand side, and then on the top are different types of assessments that we can use in our classroom with our students. So that selected response, that true, false, multiple choice. We have a constructed response, the diagram, the fill in the blank, academic prompt, that essay, formal speech. Contextual task is the real audience or situation that exists in the world. And the observation, that kid watching, taking data. So I would like to, in this moment, oops, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to reveal this chart, and I would like to hear either in the chat or out loud, you can unmute yourself, what you notice about this matrix. So I think I pulled it down too far, but the first one is the knowledge. And so we can see that the yellow plus represents that that's okay. Yeah, it's if you're wanting to assess knowledge, sure, you can do a selected response. Constructed response seems to be the most appropriate fit for assessing knowledge. Skills, it looks like contextual task. Let's look at the other ones. Dispositions. Observation seems to be the best. And understandings. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this? What are your thoughts, your wonderings? What do you notice?
You can see that to assess, like, for example, skills, understandings, the best fit would be contextual tasks, like real audience or situation that exists in the real world. So that already like ticks the box for 2 important assessments, like the skills and understanding parts.
And from my point of view,
yes,
selected response, it looks like is not suitable for almost nothing. Kind of asking with a closed answer, yes, no, maybe it is not working.
Yeah. Thank you.
I noticed something. See, just it's good. Okay, so it's interesting to see, like you were mentioning before about backwards design, how it is important to know what is it that I want to see in my students. If I want to see if they have knowledge or they have developed certain skills, then I'm gonna use different types of assessments, and that's why we can have some things like, I don't know, if I want to assess knowledge, a constructed response would be best fit, but there are other things that might be also appropriate, no? But if I always keep in mind my backwards design, like my ultimate objective, then the best fit is always like the best answer, I guess.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rosa.
May I share something else?
Yes, please.
If you check contextual task, I think maybe PBL is more contextual task than any other one in the matrix, and it is suitable for almost everything. These positions maybe not, but if you in the PBL use, for example, peer evaluation for checking the attitudes, for checking the teamwork, for checking the participation among the teams, maybe it may be suitable for everything, even these positions.
Yeah.
So I have one thing to add as well.
Yes.
Like what is surprising to me, if I look at academic prompt, I see presentation there, and it's not like it's like appropriate, but it doesn't like stick out, right? But so is it like only presentation? Because in my PBL, for example, like the end product, what they're going to do is like give a presentation, right? To in this case, to investors. I'm talking like business wise. But then the presentation would fit under contextual task, or how should I see this?
Yeah. Well, I would like to propose that I think it is appropriate to do a lot of different assessments when you're doing a project. And that presentation, if it is for a real audience, I think that would be a contextual task, Yannick. If it's just a presentation that I'm standing up in front of some classmates and I'm just telling, talking about words off my slides, then I would say that that's not a contextual task. So, yeah, thank you everyone for your observations. So I wanted to show you what the third grade teachers designed, what were all of their assessments that they did. So they did some journal reflections throughout the project about empathy, engineering, growth mindset. They did a lot of constructed responses. So they did empathy interviews, they did some paper quizzes on forces, they did some science concepts, they did lab investigations, they did 3 different lab investigations, they did some worksheets, and the contextual task was that solving that family member's problem, and then they got to give that 3D design printed object to their family that had magnets in it. And then that observation, teachers did observation and they did one-on-one conferencing with the students. So what does that look like? It looks like a lot of different assessments going on throughout your project. And as you guys know, teachers use a lot of the different information to assess the children. And it's not, especially in project-based learning, we don't wait until the end to give them a grade or to assess them. It's this continual giving feedback, and that's really what formative assessment is, right? It's just giving them feedback along the way, and you give their feedback as well at the end, but it's this continual assessment. So if you have intended learnings plus your best fit assessments, that will equal great student learning. And I wanted to emphasize that project-based learning is really designed around these contextual products and these performances. And I have seen in my experience how students are motivated, they are engaged in their learning, and the retention is so much greater and deeper than just memorizing information and memorizing facts and really focusing only on the knowledge part of assessment. And that as teachers, we really need to be assessing all of the 4 categories. We need to be assessing those big understandings. We need to be assessing those skills. We need to be assessing the knowledge and also these dispositions. And that is what you do in project-based learning. And so I'm just thrilled that you wanted to come today to this this learning opportunity to share with me. And I have some tools that I'm going to put in the chat now for you. I have a project planner that is from PBL Works. And let's see if I can. Okay. This is a project planner from PBL Works that I will share with you, and I'm going to put it in the chat. And let me see here. I'm going to get the link real quick from my presentation. That's okay, I'll just put it in the chat. The idea is that you can look at it, you can use it if it's helpful. Sometimes if you haven't done a project before, sometimes just diving in is the best way to start. I also have a link here to the best fit matrix. It's an example that the 3rd grade teachers used with finding the best fit assessments. It's a long document. I want to be really honest and say that my teachers and I went through this to kind of do a really intense learning experience, but it's not something that is, it's a long process. And I've been out of the classroom for 5 years, but I was teaching for 12 years. And I understand, you know, it's a lot of work to be planning all these assessments and going through and you know, figuring out what's the best assessment. And so realistically, my teachers do not do this matrix to figure out all of their assessments for a project. It's very time consuming, but I would like to tell you that they do have knowledge of these four intended learning goals, and that's very helpful to plan the best fit assessments for projects. I also wanted to know if there are any. I'm gonna also put in the chat my slides. You guys can also have access to them. I will. Wait 1 second. Anyone with the link? And I'm going to put them in here so you guys can have the slides as well. But I wanted to know if anyone has any questions, or I went over that pretty fast. Again, it's very time consuming to put assessments together, and it's very time consuming to plan projects. But when you put in that time at the beginning, then the rest of the learning process is it's intentional, it's productive, it's meaningful for the students. So I wanted to know, does anyone have anything they wanted to share or anything that they wanted to ask?
Quick question, Cara.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for this great presentation.
Yeah.
I think the Chalk Talk virtual tool is going to be really great. Do you have your kids write their names on it or leave it anonymous?
You know, I've done it writing their names on it, but I think that it could be useful too anonymous. You know, I think sometimes students feel more comfortable sharing when you know, they're not in the spot.
Yeah.
Especially like introverted students or people. So I've always done it with names, but definitely. Yeah, thank you. I'm looking through the chat. Sorry if I haven't. Yes, I'm going to be adding this video and the resources to it. I'll send them to Britta. And I wanted to know, I have an exit ticket here. I'd love to be able to hear from you. If you want to give me some feedback, I'd love that. I'm going to put it in the chat here. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I'm thrilled to hear that a lot of people are already doing project-based learning. If you want to reach out to me, I'm going to put my email in the chat.
The link, it's not that it doesn't work, but it says that you need only the owners of the organization can use it.
Okay, thank you. Let me check it out. Any other questions?
Hi, Cara. I'm Megan. I teach 3rd grade, and this has been a great presentation. I have a question just in terms of project-based learning with the engineering process.
Yeah.
Something that we always, sorry, it's so dark. Something we always seem to run out of time for is the reflection piece on how they would improve their design and what worked and what didn't work. And I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to what you do with elementary students in that situation.
Yeah. That is great. What we do is we have, I'm going to share my screen. Hang on a second. In our backwards planner, we have something called a milestone chart, which, hang on one second, which I'm going to show you right here. What that does for us as teachers, so it's called a milestone, project milestone. So, so you're talking about designing specifically in engineering, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if I have, like, for example, this magnet project, and I know that I want my kids to, like, you know, I'm gonna give them multiple opportunities to design, and I want it to keep improving. In these milestones, I'm gonna specifically schedule in my weeks a time for critique. So that means having like a specific protocol where I show them what it means to give feedback to another student. We actually did it today with some 3rd graders on an engineering project that they're doing. So I modeled it for them like in a fishbowl with one other student. And then I gave them feedback on something that I wanted them to improve on. And so there's a lot of protocols. If you even just Google critique protocols, there's a ton for elementary students that you could practice with your students on giving them critique and feedback on improving their design. So it's kind of like creating that culture and teachers being intentional to like schedule it in to say, and this week, we're going to all look on what does it mean to give feedback to each other. And if you do test and you want to go back and improve your design, you do that. You could do some reflecting protocols. Maybe you could do some journaling. Maybe you could have them, you know, there's a lot of different prompts for reflecting. But I would say if teachers aren't very like intentional about scheduling it in their weeks, students aren't going to do it. So it's really about us modeling it. Like, how do we do it? How would we improve it? And I would say that definitely fishbowling it or modeling it first of how do you make improvements after you test is really going to help students to make those improvements.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Carl.
What would you do, for example, if in the class there is a group that through their investigation, through their thinking, their learning, are going to they will achieve a different goal from the planet? What would you do?
That's great, Carl. You know, actually, one of the things we really encourage in project-based learning is that students have choice in the project. And so it's actually a great project when a teacher can design the learning goals, and where students might have different products or might have different pieces to show their learning. And it's difficult. It's difficult because teachers wants to have the control, right? That everybody kind of has the same final product. But it's actually really part of that deep learning and that deep motivation when kids can take projects kind of and kind of take it their own way. So as teachers, we kind of have to give up that control, but also hold them accountable. So project-based learning really advocates for teachers using tools to help kids keep on track. So that might mean like maybe that a kid who wants to do his own project has his own separate calendar, and he's checking in with the teacher on certain days to make sure that he's still on track. Maybe that child also has a different set of questions in a journal or on a Padlet, but you know, he's still held accountable for inquiry and asking questions and reflecting. So it's about teachers setting students up for success and having lots of different tools like the protocols, planning intentional times to teach them protocols and to go through these steps. But I would say it's a wonderful thing when students have different products and want to kind of go off on their own way because they're really thinking critically about what they're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
So it says from Ashley, in your opinion, what would be most effective, having a large year-long project or breaking up to smaller projects? Ashley, that totally depends on the teacher. But I've seen that if your project is not well planned and you have a whole year, it could be very hard and long for the teachers and students. So I would say if it's going to be a year long, it has to be really well planned out and very well executed and be very meaningful. Like students are very engaged and have a very purposeful audience, because to be engaged a whole year is difficult. So usually at my school, we break it up in quarters. We do about 6 weeks, 6-week projects. But it can be anywhere from a 1-week project to a year-long project. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate your participation, your thoughts. It's been lovely sharing this space with you. And again, please reach out to me if you have any questions about NGSS or project-based learning or assessments. I hope you use the tools. And I think Britta's going to send out a survey to all of you, so you can give me some feedback on the survey with Britta. So thank you so much for your patience, and have a great evening, great afternoon. Thanks for showing up after a long day of work. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Erica, did you have another question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you, so with the thing that you said that I can like give another focus to the project. So I was thinking about since like the main goal is to assess the properties of materials and like what they are going to, like if they already know like how to test them and everything. Do you think it would be good like to give also like another meaning, like you were what you were saying, like to give it a purpose also, like to whom is going to belong this cape at the end of the day?
Definitely, because you know why? If you have to make a cape for my neck is small. So they have to measure that. You know, that's a really important skill for second graders, to be able to measure, not just with a ruler, but with like a tape measurer, right? So I would even say that it could be something funny, like maybe the principal gets a cape, maybe, you know, a 12th grader gets a cape, maybe, you know, and each group gets to make a cape for someone that is going to be a superhero. And I guarantee you the level of excitement for the kids is going to just explode. And so then maybe in art class, they can like design the cape, you know, and maybe you say to them, if you are going to do an artwork on the cape, it can't be any bigger than, you know, 30 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So they have to measure that too. And, you know, or maybe they have to use shapes. Maybe, you know, I know in second grade too, there's the vertices and the different shapes that they're, you know, maybe there's some requirement that the shape, you know, that the cape has some shapes. So
yeah, and then we can do like the cross-cutting concepts, right? So we can like merge it with other classes.
Yes, amazing.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.